Now coming to hemolytic anemia from direct toxic effects. So we can have hemolytic anemia due to some of these agents. What are these agents? Are malaria, there is an organism known as Bartonella. That Bartonella can lead to Bartonellosis. You can have Clostridium welchi. Other microorganisms like Pneumococci, Staphylococcus, Escherichia coli. Copper, lead, snake venom and spider venom, and extensive burns. So due to these external agents, there can also be hemolysis. So first starting with malaria. So this is the life cycle of malaria. You should know there are two stages. So there is a cycle in the mosquito and there is a cycle in the humans. In this humans you have a hepatic stage and a erythrocytic stage. So what happens is, now we are going to see the erythrocytic stage. In the erythrocytic stage, what happens? The merozoites will come in contact, will be taken up by the erythrocytes. So what happens is these will mature. These merozoites will now become trypanozoites and will keep maturing. Once they come to the erythrocytic schizoid stage, during this stage the RBCs rupture. So what happens is, once the RBCs rupture, what you will get? You will get the fertilized, you will get the gametocytes. Okay, so these were, so a sexual reproduction occurs and which leads to gametocyte formation. So in the erythrocytic stage of malaria in humans, what happens is the merozoites are taken up by the erythrocytes. These develop into trypanocyte. They'll keep maturing. They'll become erythrocytic schizoids. Because these erythrocytic schizoids are so much abundantly packed inside the RBCs that the RBCs rupture. Once they rupture, what you get? You will get a female and a male which will fertilize into gametocytes. Okay, so that is how the RBCs get ruptured. So if you can see, this is a normal RBC. Infected RBCs, you will say malarial parasite that keep multiplying inside the RBCs. So once they multiply so much that the RBCs cannot contain them, the RBCs burst. Coming to Bartonella. So Bartonella is a type of a bacteria. Okay, so Bartonella species is a gram-negative bacteria. So this leads to Bartonellosis, which is an infectious disease. Okay, so what this Bartonella can cause? It can cause Carrion's disease, trench fever, cat scratch disease, bacillary angiomatosis, papillosis, hepatitis, chronic bacteremia, endocarditis, chronic lymphadenopathy, and neurological disorders. So what happens is, in Bartonella, if you see the cat scratch disease, in cat scratch disease what happens is, I'll show you a diagram of that later on. So here if you can see, you have a mosquito biting. So what happens is, when a mosquito bites you, initially it will leave a primary niche. What is primary niche? What is a primary niche? Primary niche can be a small form of the active disease. So what happens is, it leaves a particular cell. This cell will attach to the RBCs, which will invade the RBCs, which will replicate. This replication will again extend, and if it extends, the RBCs can break down. This breakdown leads to hemolytic anemia. Some of these can persist in the same stage. At this stage, if again a mosquito takes blood from the blood vessels, this infected mosquito will then go infect a lot of people. So this is the small life cycle of how Bartonellosis occurs. Coming to Clostridium perfringens. Clostridium perfringens type A. Clostridium perfringens will have multiple types. Among them, type A produces an alpha toxin which causes hemolysis. hemolysis by destroying dead blood cells, resulting in the failure to supply oxygen to the tissue. Clostridium perfringens infection occurs if that leads to septicemia is rare, but can cause hemolysis, which damages the RBCs. So the effects of alpha toxins on hematopoiesis and erythropoiesis. What are the effects? It will block the erythroid differentiation. Okay. So what is the erythroid differentiation? The erythroid differentiation is when your hematopoietic stem cells can differentiate into myeloid and lymphoid series. If that reduces, what will happen? If you don't have the myeloid series, you will not have the RBCs. Okay. And there is suppression of the erythropoiesis. So the entire process of erythropoiesis can also be affected by these alpha toxins. Massive intravascular hemolysis can occur. Severe anemia has been reported in Clostridium perfringens infected patients. So intravascular means inside the vessels a lot of RBCs can get destroyed, and because of the destruction you can have severe anemia. So here there is a diagram. You can see if you get the Clostridium perfringens infection, this infection occurs especially when, for example, especially this used to occur in wound infection. So if you go bare feet on a ground where Clostridium perfringens is infesting, if you get a cut, so due to that muscle cut or tissue cut, the Clostridium perfringens enters inside your body, and that will release alpha toxin. This alpha toxin enters the blood vessels. Inside the blood vessels, what will happen? All the RBCs, these RBCs will start deforming. Okay, these will start deforming, start breaking up. Okay, and this can also affect your bone marrow. How it can affect? See, this myeloid erythroblast. This, if you remember, the hematopoietic stem cell will lead to myeloid progenitors. This myeloid progenitors will differentiate into myeloblast and erythroblast. But this differentiation does not occur. So what will happen? The erythrocytes will not be formed, and this myeloid will lead to neutrophils. These neutrophils are important to counteract such infections. If these are not there, what will happen? Your RBCs will be deformed. Okay. So this diagram is helpful along with the text that I have read to you. Now coming to Escherichia coli. In Escherichia coli, for example, if you take hemolytic uremic syndrome, here what happens is when you get infected by Escherichia coli, especially they have many toxins. In that, one toxin is a Shiga-like toxin. This toxin can lead to abdominal pain, bloody diarrhea, fever, seizures, and lethargy. If you see the blood film, you can see microangiopathic hemolytic anemia. You can see these fragmented helmet-like cells, schizoid cells. You will see thrombocytopenia means less. These platelets will be less in number, and renal insufficiency will be seen. Okay, so even E. coli having Shiga-like toxins. Shiga-like toxin can also cause this hemolysis. Coming to copper deposits. Now, copper deposits is known as Wilson's disease. So, how it happens? It happens due to deficiency of ceruloplasmin, the copper transport protein. So, what is ceruloplasmin? It is a copper transport protein. This will result, if there is deficiency of ceruloplasmin, will result in excessive inorganic copper in the blood circulation, much of which will get accumulated in the red blood cells. Okay, now we do not see, if you see, the liver stores copper. This copper has to get transported whenever the plasma requires it. So the transport protein is ceruloplasmin. If ceruloplasmin is not there, what will happen? The plasma will not get a lot of copper. The copper will get accumulated in the liver, and these copper will now go and bind to the RBCs. Okay, although the exact mechanism is not known, increased copper accumulation in the RBCs might damage the cell membrane, accelerate oxidation of the hemoglobin, inactivate enzymes of the pentose phosphate and glycolytic pathways. Okay, so because of this, what you can have CNS diseases, you can have renal disease, hemolytic anemia, because what happens, this copper goes and attaches to the surface of the RBCs and breaks the RBC down. Okay, and very important is, in Wilson's disease you will have Kesha-Fleischer rings. You can see these rings. Okay. And treatment is chelation. Lead poisoning. Lead poisoning can occur due to multiple factors, due to some toxic ingestions. When people take poison, in poisons there can be lead. In some medicines like Ayurvedic, allopathic medicines, if they are not manufactured properly, they can have large amount of lead in that. Okay, and in people who work with lead, there can be accidental exposure. So what happens is, in lead poisoning, there will be basophilic stippling. What is basophilic stippling? If you see an RBC and lot of stipples like this, these are known as basophilic stippling. It occurs. Why it occurs? Why this stippling occurs is, they are aggregates of ribosome or fragments of ribosomal RNA that is precipitated throughout the cytoplasm of the circulating erythrocytes. So these stipples are, what are these? These are ribosomes. These are fragmented ribosomes. Now what happens with snake venom? What are hemotoxins? So what happens is, whenever snake bites you, okay, so this is your snake venom. So whenever a snake bites you, it affects your red blood cells. How it affects? It leads to blood clotting, it will lead to organ degeneration, it can lead to tissue damage. So you can see the signs and symptoms of snake bite. Drooping eyelids, you will have change in color of the tissue. This can lead to some edema, some blisters can occur, which can also occurs in the limb. Okay, so you'll have swelling of the limbs, blister formation can be seen. So I've added a video where you can see how when you add venom to blood, the blood starts coagulating. This clotting, this coagulation is it happens so rapidly and in such a huge number that this can affect the organs, and because of the organs that get affected, this can affect your heart, your lungs, and that is how a person can die. And now coming to extensive burn. See, burns are of 3 types. You'll have 3 degrees, first, second and third. In the 3rd degree, where is a full thickness burn and the entire thickness of the skin is burnt out, what happens is, your dermis, epidermis, sometimes subcutaneous muscle or bone, all these are involved. Okay, so if all these are involved, what is supplying all these is your blood vessels. So all the blood vessels, all the RBCs inside this will die. So you will have symptoms of painlessness. There will be no pain because the nerves have been burnt out. There will be shock, hematuria, there will be blood in the urine, hemolysis of blood vessels will be there, fat and skin is exposed, there can be edema, the skin can become pale white or charred, black in color. Okay, and how it heals is, you definitely need skin grafting in such injuries. Okay, now after burn, especially in 48 to 72 hours, what happens is, RBC loss from the microangiopathic anemia. So what happens is, all in the minute vessels, the microvasculature, all the RBCs get lost. Okay, due to extensive burn. See, if I have a burn here, so I recently had a small burn. So if you have an extensive burn over here, what will happen? All the small capillaries over here will get burned, and because they are dying, so what will happen? This will eventually cause a lot of RBCs to come to this side. So they will eventually start dying off. Okay, now RBC destruction, initially caused by heat damage, means lot of heat has fallen at that place. What will happen? RBCs will die. Okay, and there will be later hemolysis, burned later by hemolysis of damaged RBC cells. So what happens? First, because of heat it can die, and now because of the extensive exposure, lot of RBCs are being formed, and now because lot of RBCs are formed, they are immature RBCs, so that can also lead to hemolysis. There can be kidney damage. The damaged RBCs, these hemoglobin will get filtered by the kidney, so hemoglobinuria can also occur. So for example, this is a photo of extensive burn. You can see the skin, the dermis, epidermis has gone. You can see this yellowish, that is your subcutaneous fat is there. You can see some amount of muscles, and all this will be red in color. Okay, what is red in color means? Exposed RBCs, exposed blood vessels are there. Okay, and what is the treatment of this depends on the underlying causes. So if you take out the toxins away, away, or you treat the toxic effect, automatically hemolytic anemia will also get corrected. Okay.